In the early days of recording, you couldn't find a recording studio without a big mixing console. But it's the 21st century now. Surely nobody needs a mixer in the studio anymore, right? Wrong. Today, I want to share 3 reasons why a mixer is still a great choice for specifically home recording studios. If we haven't met yet, my name is Joe Gilder, and over the last 16 years, I've helped musicians like you make the dream of creating music that they're proud of a reality. I don't talk about gear a lot on this channel, mainly because I find the process of making music far more interesting than the tools we use, but let's admit it, gear is pretty fun. And today we're talking about mixers, specifically digital mixers. Quick point of clarification, what's the difference between a digital mixer and an audio interface? An audio interface looks something like this, or maybe this. It's a device that goes between the analog world, meaning your voice, your microphones, your guitars, your keyboards, and the digital world, which is your computer. Typically, they connect to the computer via USB, Thunderbolt, in the old days, Firewire. But it is the go-between that allows you to record your microphone into your computer. And sometimes, depending on the interface, it allows you to record multiple microphones at the same time. A digital mixer, like the one I have in front of me, is an audio interface. It still connects to my computer via a USB cable in the back, but it's also just a straight up mixer. I could use this to run sound for a concert, but it's also the front end of my studio and a big honkin' audio interface. In other words, this thing does what an audio interface does, plus a bunch more. So the first reason why I love having a mixer as the hub for my studio is because of the inputs. So here's where I'm coming from. I'm a singer-songwriter and I have a band. So typically I'm in the studio by myself, just recording myself, microphone, guitar, things like that. But occasionally I have my band here and we record up to 13 or 14 tracks at the same time. You can't do that with a typical audio interface by itself. So for example, the one I showed you earlier, this one, the Presonus Quantum, is a pretty typical input-output system for audio interfaces. This gives me 8 microphone inputs. Now, I can expand it by either buying another one of these or getting an 8-channel preamp that gives me an ADAT optical output that I can run into this. Now I've got 16 inputs instead of 8, but out of the box, this will only support 8 microphones. Maybe that's enough for you. For me, I just did a session the other day. We had 13 channels set up. I needed 14 inputs for that day. A single audio interface would not do this. But if you look at the back of my mixer, which looks like this, I got 24 microphone inputs available to me that I can run all simultaneously and record all 24 to individual tracks inside my recording software. That's pretty great. Yes, the mixer is more expensive than a single audio interface, but when you start thinking in terms of, oh, it's 24 individual mic inputs, you start to realize, I can see where already this is becoming more valuable, because instead of buying, in this instance, 3 8-channel input devices and combining them together somehow, I've got one device that does all of that for me. Oh, and if you're curious, this is the track list from that tracking session that we did. If you're curious how you get to 14 or 13 inputs, 2 kicks, 1 snare, 2 toms, 2 overheads, 2 rooms, a fat mic, which is just its own thing, bass DI, and then 2 channels for my guitar amp modeler. That's 13 right there. And then this one being a 14th, just so I could sing like a scratch vocal at the end. So it adds up pretty quickly. Reason number 2 why I love having a mixer in my home studio, latency, or the lack thereof. Have you ever sat down to record a vocal and it sounds like this in your headphones? Testing. 1, 2, 3. That delay that you hear, that's latency. Latency can happen when you monitor or listen to your microphone through your recording software. It happens because your audio interface and your computer take time to process that audio before sending it back to you. You can adjust your buffer settings to lower the latency, or a lot of audio interfaces have their own separate software you can run, which is separate from your recording software, to allow for low latency monitoring. But I don't have to do any of that because I just use a mixer. A mixer was designed to be a no latency experience. When I sing into a microphone on stage at a concert, I expect to hear my voice instantly in the monitors or in my ears. That's what you get from a mixer. When my band and I set up for a session, we all hear ourselves instantly, regardless of what's going on in the software. I could literally throw my computer out the window. We can still hear ourselves. That means I can run the buffer settings nice and high in my software, which takes the pressure off the computer and prevents any dropouts, while still hearing myself with no latency. There are a couple of exceptions or specific situations where this low latency monitoring from the mixer won't help you. One of those is using guitar amp simulators. If I'm plugging my guitar in and using software to get my amp tones, then I need that software to hit me back real quick. So I need low latency there, so I've got to lower my buffer settings. Virtual instruments. If I plug in my keyboard via USB and I'm playing instruments in the software, I need those instruments to come back at me quickly rather than having that latency there. So I'm going to have to lower the latency settings in my software in those cases. But for me, I'm using a Helix as my amp modeler. So I plug that into my mixer. I'm not using software. And then I'm typically mostly recording guitars and vocals and things with microphones. So the low latency stuff really applies to me. If you do a lot of stuff with amp sims and virtual instruments, then this might not apply to you or be as beneficial for you. Okay, got a question for you. Do you want to release new music in the next 30 days? If so, I've got an incredible free gift for you. I'll give you over $500 of music making training for free when you take my VIP membership for a test drive. Get started today over at homestudiocorner.com/VIP. Reason number 3 might be a surprise: content. As a musician releasing music, if you're not in the content game, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to get your music in front of more people. I bought my first mixer for this purpose of making content. Here it is, a tiny little analog mixer that has a USB connection so I could record the main mix back into my computer. I did this so that I could run out of my audio interface at the time into these inputs here, and then run my vocal mic here. So for doing tutorials, for example, I could play back from my DAW on this channel and have a volume control, and then have my voice on this channel, and then all of this got mixed through the main output, which went via USB back into my computer, into my video software to record what I was doing. So that meant I had 2 audio devices, my audio interface that was talking to my Studio One, and then my mixer that was also talking to the video software. Very complicated, did not work super well. Now I can do all of this and more with just one device. So my mix is playing back on my mixer. My voice is on another channel on the mixer. I can EQ my voice, get it sounding like this instead of sounding like this. This is without EQ, this is with EQ, and then all of that gets mixed together and sent back into the computer via the USB cable that was already connected, and that's what gets recorded when I do my videos. So right now, my video software is recording my voice and anything I play back on my mixer. And then when I go to edit that video, I don't have to do any mixing because I already mixed it here. I already got my voice sounding like I want it to sound. I've got the levels set here so that I know it's going to work on the recording. So all I got to do is chop up the video and export it, and I'm good to go. There's no extra step of having to mix audio after the fact. Plus, this is super nerdy. Let me show you this real quick. I've got it set up so my vocal mic is here and my playback from my Mac is here on this fader. And I've also got it set up to where when anything plays on this channel, for example, music from iTunes or something from my DAW, it automatically turns this one down. I'm using the compressor on this mixer, and I've got it set up to sidechain from my playback from my computer. So when I hit play in my computer on some music, that it muted my vocal. So I can talk over this music and you will barely hear me, if at all. Let's test it out. Here we go. 1, 2, 5. And that's all getting recorded with the video, so I don't have to do any of that editing after the fact. Okay, I told you I had 3 reasons, but here's an actual bonus 4th reason why I love having a mixer: playing music. Sometimes I just want to grab a guitar or sit down at the keyboard and play. I don't want to have to open up a bunch of software to do that. That's too much friction. Since I use an actual keyboard that has its own sounds, and since I use an amp modeler on the floor down there with its own sounds, I just have them plugged into this mixer. So when I want to play, I just unmute that channel and play. It's delightful. That may seem like a small thing, but I find myself being more creative when I have little hacks like this in place to allow me to play music as effortlessly as possible. Real quickly, a couple of frequently asked questions about mixers. First, what about analog mixers? Something like this Mackie VLZ. Analog mixers aren't my preference for a couple of reasons. One, you still need an audio interface of some sort, a device to go out of the analog mixer and then into your audio interface to record. And secondly, if you want to do multi-track recording, which is what I like to do, you need an analog mixer that allows you to send each microphone input to its own dedicated output. This is oftentimes called direct outputs. If we look at the back of this Mackie, it's got 16 mic ins, but it's only got 8 direct outs. Now, I'm not sure how you can set those up, but that means with this specific mixer, I can't record 16 channels of audio into my DAW. Not without doing some sort of other hack where you can use like the inserts where you only insert it halfway, and then that's an unbalanced signal. It's not a great system. I would prefer a simpler solution, which is one digital mixer like this one that will connect to my computer and behave as a mixer versus having to have multiple quote-unquote moving parts. Second question I get a lot is, what about mixing your songs through the mixer? You can do that, right? Yeah, just like I can record 24 or more tracks of audio from this mixer, I can also play those back through the mixer. I've done that before. I mixed a whole album of mine through a PreSonus digital mixer. It was kind of fun, but I probably won't do it again. Why? Because mixing in the software world is, in my opinion, just better. There's no sonic benefit to this other than the tactile moving faders with your hands, and that's fun for about 10 seconds. But then you want to start adjusting things and using very specific settings and automation and all the stuff that your software will do, you can't do in the mixer world. So I'd rather just keep that in the box. All right, that's it for this video. If you like to mix and you haven't seen this video yet, I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.